Greetings, Tezos Nation. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons. Joining me today is John Stefanidis, CEO of Balthazar. Balthazar, for those who might not know, is the blockchain gaming integration and trading platform aiming to streamline and solidify blockchain technology's place in the Web3 and play-to-earn gaming landscape of the future. Hi, John. How are things in your neck of the woods?
Good, Stu. Good. Sunny down here in Sydney. So, having a great start of the day. How are you?
I'm well. It's rainy here, but I can't complain. To get us started, can you tell us a bit about your background and how you got your start in the exciting world of blockchain technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my journey with blockchain started in 2018, not as an operator or as an owner, just as someone that was keenly interested in the new technology. It was interesting. I bought Ripple very early on, and sort of got involved in that ecosystem just out of curiosity, just because as a lot of people do when they enter crypto, they get recommended by someone, and I just dabbled actually, and I enjoyed it. Obviously, lost money like everyone else in the bear market and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think that was my introduction to crypto. What I couldn't see at that point in time was the application. Maybe it was because the space wasn't mature enough yet, or maybe because I wasn't there yet in terms of my own knowledge, and I hadn't dove deep enough into the space. Fast forward, a couple of years. I mean, speaking broadly, my experience is in traditional like digital venture building, so e-commerce, digital marketing. I've been doing that my whole life, and had some success with a few businesses leading up to sort of the end of 2021. And in 2021, one of my business partners who I'd worked with over the last few years said to me, "John, you've got to check this out. There's this new category and within crypto called NFT gaming, play to earn gaming," and was introduced to the space from there. And as an avid gamer and someone that's passionate about technology, my eyes were wide, and I was like, "Oh wow, there's new technology. It's crypto plus there's gaming, and people are earning money about playing games." And it was quite eye opening for me. So that was my journey into crypto. So it was sort of
Okay. And how did you end up getting involved with Balthazar? Like, can you tell us a bit about how the project and your team took shape?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting Balthazar, we were actually a guild originally. So the first exposure we had to the NFT gaming space was actually, we saw a guild online, and we saw this is really cool. They have this enormous community, and everyone's like applying like crazy to be part of it, and they're all making money. And we dove a little bit deeper into Axie Infinity, and we understood, what their model looked like. And obviously, there were some questions around sort of where does the money come from and all of that, which isn't natural. But yeah, so we started as a guild. We funded it with our own money at the start, and then we raised, and that were the beginning. So that was exciting at the time, building that. Typically in my background, I've always come from bootstrapping businesses, so I've always built them from the ground up and funded them myself. So going through the raising process was fun, and it was a new experience. But that was our first, that was our first introduction to the space. We started as a guild, but eventually pivoted towards an infrastructure business. Given the we didn't want to tie us. We were one of the first guilds to pivot out, and we didn't want to tie ourselves to the volatility of gaming assets at a point when they weren't ready yet. Games weren't quite ready yet. So
okay, makes sense. And as CEO of Balthazar, I imagine you have a lot on your plate. Can you walk us through a little bit of the day in the life of the CEO of Balthazar?
Yeah, absolutely. I check in with a lot of the key members of my team regularly. Quite involved in product development. Involved very heavily in speaking to people that own our token. Partnerships and strategy, and keeping my ear to the ground, meeting lots of interesting people, and just making sure that our vision, being onboarding the next wave of gamers into the Web3 space, is being met. And that's pretty much my day. Every day, just at it in the office every day, and working hard towards meeting that vision.
Very cool. In preparing for this podcast, I took a look at your white paper, and I saw that you've identified two core primitive problems that you're aiming to solve with this project. I thought they were very interesting. Like I personally am very interested in the concepts around PTE gaming. I thought they were interesting points. I'd like to get you to expand on each of them a bit if you can, like how they came to your attention and why you think they need addressing. The
100.
first, games are struggling with their go-to-market strategies due to volatile crypto markets, resulting in less venture funding and increased reliance on NFT sales. So, can you tell me what would a solid go-to-market strategy look like for a new game in this space if the problems of insufficient venture capital and over-reliance on NFT sales were solved?
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing that games need to do, if they have if they have funds, is spend them effectively. And what I mean by that is on showing amazing content to start with. So I think that going to market, you need to get people genuinely engaged in your product. I think that's the first thing. So working with people that are going to help distribute your content to the right audience, and by the right audience, I mean genuine gamers, people that want to play the game for fun. So that's the first part of a good go-to-market strategy. I think the other one is, when going to market, working with lots of different launch pads, so you can tap into their audiences as well. I think that's really important. So making sure that, when you are distributing your NFTs and you are getting ready to making sure that you're not over issuing assets to parties that might want to, use as assets to profit, and essentially people that actually want to play the game. So I think that's the second part. And I think the third part is making sure you're spending money on optimizing user experience, because you can have access to a huge pool of gamers, and you can partner with brilliant people and brilliant partners that have access to Web 2 gamers and general web games in general. But if they're going to have issues logging in, that's a problem, right? So you want to reduce barriers and ensure that you're accessing the right pools of people and letting them log in and play the game, really quickly. It's not about the money, right? It's a game. So when we talk about play-to-earn gaming, right? Yeah, it's more for me. It's more about the NFT and the value accrual in NFTs rather than the actual game economy. So I mean, my personal thesis, and I've said this a few times, like on Twitter Spaces and stuff, is I think the first version of NFT gaming shouldn't have even factored in a token economy. I think it should have just had, just NFTs. You start with playing with an NFT and you accrue value. Imagine playing Dota and the skins that you have are just NFTs. I think that would have been a great start. I think that we probably did too much too quickly, as we see in in markets. Everyone wants to solve the world's problems, but yeah, having games that have two or three tokens within an economy, plus NFTs and different equity and token systems, and it just gets really complicated. So I think we went too hard too soon.
Well, it is a very complex equation, right? To bring in, if you introduce those elements where you have NFTs in the game, you have this play to earn element. In order to make that work, you need to have capital involved. The money can be a barrier to entry. Once people are playing the game and the play to earn element is live and people are earning off the game, making it so that it's not a few people with the best NFTs that are really good at it claiming all the money and a bunch of other people wasting their time, right?
Absolutely, yeah, completely agree with that. Yeah.
Which leads us into problem number 2 that your team identified in the white paper, which is game studios are unable to effectively build on the blockchain due to a lack of knowledge, standardization for interoperability and efficiency, and resources. This inefficiency results in less focus on creating fun games and ultimately adoption. And my question for you is, how have lack of blockchain knowledge and standardization held back the creative processes involved in creating a gaming experience that drives adoption? And what has the impact of that shortfall been?
Yeah, I think there's two things to address here. The first one is around the creation of the game itself. And if you think about building like a AAA rated game and launching that, the gaming space is enormous and highly competitive, right? Like you're basically battling for people's time and attention, which is the hardest thing to fight for, where you're not just competing with like other games, you're competing with other forms of media, right? So it's super competitive. Building a really good game and being creative and doing something that hasn't been done before is really hard in itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now if you're adding blockchain on top of that, and you have game developers who are inexperienced, they're just great at building great games, they're inexperienced the crypto side, which is natural, right? Because crypto is so new. There's not an unlimited pool of brilliant crypto developers, and there's no standardization to tap into. you end up diluting the game experience because you have to split your resources. Most games don't have unlimited funding. So if you have a fixed pool of funds and you need to allocate 50% of that to making sure that you've got your smart contracts ready and that you've got your tokenomics ready and you've got your NFT design and a lot of these elements that, aren't necessarily critical to just having an amazing game objectively, you're starting to dilute the game creation experience. So that's the first problem. And I think the second problem there is around, games being funded by VCs with really, really fast, liquidity expectations, as is typical in crypto. So, it might, speaking to the guys at Ubisoft, they reckon it takes, over 2.5 years to release an MMORPG. And that's a problem when you've got VCs that are pumping millions of dollars into games and expect liquidity in 6 months. So 6 to 12 months. So there are two issues. So one is, diluting and splitting out your resources, results in less resources being put to the thing that's actually going to drive adoption, which is the fact that the game is fun.
Yeah.
And on the other end, the game being pushed to go live even faster is also a problem because it's just not logical. So they're two issues in the space, and they're two issues that we're working towards trying to address.
Okay. We've seen those scenarios play out with a number of promising blockchain based and PTE games over the past couple of years. What can you tell us about Balthazar's plan for smoothing out those wrinkles moving forward?
Yeah, so there's two different products that we have, and parts of the business that we have that help with the different problems. So the first one is around the distribution of games and helping games go to market and actually have access to the right users and good capital. And that's our research division. So the division was led by Nico the Pico. He's led by Nico the Pico Korsgaard, who's a friend of mine, who I onboarded as our chief gaming officer late in 2021, actually, just after we started Balthazar. Obviously, he has an extensive background in esports. He was the head coach of League of Legends for Fnatic in 2018 and 2020. He's worked with Ninjas in Pajamas. He's worked for Swiss Banks, heading up esports division. So he's got a deep pool of experience in the gaming space. And we built a team around Nico, which we call our Alpha team. And what the Alpha team do is produce reports about different projects and games. So we've done one on Dogami, which is a game on the Tezos network. We've done one even on Tezos. We've done one on different games and different projects, and we provide a score for the different games. And what these reports do is provide context there's a couple of things, right? The first thing is they provide context for venture capital and funding in general around whether the game is actually a fun and playable game without just looking at the numbers and the tokenomics, because sometimes they can be hard to quantify. Yeah. So we add value on that side, and we get a lot of requests from VCs and funds and a lot of our partners asking us to assess different games. So that's part of what we do, and we can provide transparency and help games, help better money go into games. And on the other end, for games, we help provide them with transparency, if their game is right, and they can use that to raise, and they can use that to get players in if it's a fun game. We provide detail around their gameplay. So it's a consolidated approach around bringing the game to market and bringing the game to life. And we do that, free of charge as part of our research division. We also have paid services like audits and custom reports, which are different. But our editorial style research reports are unpaid, and we do them just to help progress the space. So that's cool. That's one part of what we're doing to help bring the space forward and help bring more transparency to games and help them with their resourcing and going to market. And then the other end, on the standardization side, on the product side, we've actually built an SDK, which we call Babylon. And what we do with the SDK, there's a couple of things. The first is it provides obviously standardization for certain blockchain elements that would have been expensive for games to build otherwise, stuff like marketplaces, wallet systems and login processes. We facilitate in-game transactions in a cost-effective way, and fast, peer-to-peer trading, at Web3 inventory management systems. A lot of the things that SDKs like, say, PlayFab may standardize in the Web2 world, we're able to standardize on the Web3 side. What we've also created on that side as well for the onboarding side of things is actually a non-custodial wallet system where people can log in using a username and password and have all the crypto stuff done in the background and not have to worry about that. So you can literally jump into a game, type in your username and password, start playing immediately. And if you like the game and you start to accrue value in your NFTs and you want to send some NFTs to your wallet or buy them through the marketplace using like a fiat on ramp, you can do that. But fundamentally, you can still play the game without having to worry about any of the crypto stuff. So significantly reducing barriers there and creating efficiencies for games when building.
That's very interesting. Great stuff so far. I'm excited to learn more. But before we get into the nitty gritty, are you ready for the world famous TezTalks lightning round?
Always ready, mate.
Remember, there are no wrong answers, and this is just for fun, so our listeners and viewers can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Beaches or mountains?
Beaches.
Pizza or sushi?
Pizza.
Movies or video games?
Video games.
That was a trick question. You got it right. Is this real life, or are we in a simulation?
I think it's real life. I feel like it's real life.
True or false? Money buys happiness.
Depends on what you buy with the money.
Absolutely. Name one thing you absolutely want to do before you die.
Oh man, that's a hard one. Climb Mount Everest.
Wow, that is ambitious. That's a good answer. The last place you traveled was?
Ooh, Singapore for Token 2049.
Cool. In 5 words or less, how would your best friend describe you?
Passionate about his work.
Perfect. And finally, what is your favorite thing to do on a rainy day?
Play video games.
Very on brand. Thank you. Excellent answers. That concludes the TezTalks lightning round. We can get back into it. We're seeing a lot of activity across the blockchain-based gaming space in 2022. We've seen new projects being launched in every corner of the blockchain ecosystem. What part do you envision Balthazar playing in bringing these sort of disparate elements and gaming ecosystems together with that interoperability that you spoke about earlier? Is that something you think will be important as blockchain-based gaming becomes mainstream?
Oh, it's so important. I think the promise of interoperability takes gaming to a whole new level. So I feel like, first of all, we need more games. Excuse me. We need more games in the space to even think about interoperability. So we need more good games in the space with lots of users. I think interoperability is super interesting from a few different perspectives. I think interoperability can offer really cool things like an acquisition strategy for games. So for example, if you've got a game that has players that have a bunch of NFTs that they own, and then people stop playing the game, or the game then eventually dies out, another game could potentially acquire or let people use their NFTs in a completely new environment, and essentially rejig and grab a whole bunch of users that were once engaged. So I think that's a potential really cool application of interoperability.
Absolutely.
I think there's the promise of interoperability is awesome, right? And the more interoperable you make NFTs and digital assets, the more people are going to want to buy them, the more value they'll accrue because there's more utility, right? So I think, when we think about utility a lot with tokens and with NFTs, but as the technology evolves and the space grows, I think that the scope for interoperability is going to grow dramatically, which is really exciting. So I think to answer that part of the question, interoperability is such a key element, but we're very early on. The prospects are super exciting. In terms of what Balthazar is going to do, well, there's a few things. On the first side, we're obviously providing a very seamless login experience for Web2 gamers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can help progress the space by enabling, mass adoption. So if you combine great user experience with really key partnerships that we have with esports companies like Misfits and even guys like Tezos, we work with, speak closely with the Ubisoft team, speak closely with the Square Enix team. We can help really be in the center of some really key plays in the space and help drive that interoperability. So I think we can help through technology, we can help through partnerships, and I think our research is also really important for just raising awareness about games that are great. So I think first of all, we're very conscious of the way the space is moving, and we're always trying to build and solve the biggest problems. I think interoperability is something that once solved and once active is going to be a huge value add to the space.
Could be massive, right? Obviously, this is TezTalks. We're a Tezos focused podcast, and I'm wondering what can you tell us about the Tezos backed projects you're currently working with and the nature of those relationships? Is it strictly that your team has played Dogami and written up a report on it, or do you have communication with the people behind it?
Oh, we work really closely with the Dogami team. So we're big fans of them. We're token holders as well. We're talking about the potential implementation of our SDK as a to optimize their login experience and the in-game marketplace. So we love the team there. They're great. I think what they're building is phenomenal. I think I think the augmented reality part of the game is like super innovative, and I think they're really gonna for the category that they're playing in, they're absolute leaders there. So I'm super excited about that. We're also working with other games, Wildlands, Oathbound, Tezos Troopers. So we have different conversations with a lot of different games, and we can help them in so many ways, like through our launchpad, through research, through our technology. So yeah, we work really closely with the ecosystem. We also ran, so Nico, our chief gaming officer, ran Twitter space with the Tezos gaming community
Cool.
early September. So we're super active with the Tezos network. I think that you guys have a really strong community, a genuine community that's like super active. We see it on our socials, passionate, active. We have a few Tezos fanatics in the team as well on the gaming side. And I think that the quality of projects is really good. So yeah, it's exciting. Good ecosystem to be working in.
All right. That was my next question, was what it's been like working and talking to the people in this ecosystem, but you've already answered that. So with its notable advantages like low gas fees, adaptability, scalability, and a small environmental footprint, what part do you see an ecosystem like that of Tezos playing in the gaming landscape of the future?
Oh, it's so important. I think that just the idea of fast transactions, cheap transactions, these are just absolutely necessary to running any blockchain-based system in a game, right? So that's the first thing, and that's really important. On the other side, I think just the community is brilliant. I think having a really strong community, a genuine community, and great projects being built on the space, on the chain, sorry, will make Tezos a critical leader in the gaming space. And I feel as though it's hard to know if there will be like a gaming protocol or which will be the gaming protocol. But Tezos is definitely doing the right things and has the right technology and foundation for it. So you need to be able to trade assets in games. You need to be able to whether it's a marketplace, whether you're doing airdrops, picking assets up, like all these things. They've got to be cheap. They've got to be fast. And obviously energy efficient. So you guys are ticking all the boxes there.
We love hearing that. Based on what you're building with Balthazar, it's pretty clear that you and your team believe that blockchain based and NFT powered gaming will be a big presence in the gaming landscape of the future. What makes you so confident about this, that you're willing to dive in with an ambitious project like this?
Yeah, when you look at any industry, even back in Web 2, the ones that succeed are the ones that do things better than what they were being done before, when there's more value being transferred to the customer. Even when you look at something like Amazon, why did Amazon succeed? Well, they just got the product faster. They got it to your doorstep faster.
Mm-hmm.
They had more product. So you think about different industries, different categories that do things better. The mobile phone. You pick up a mobile phone, you can call someone from anywhere, right? It's an evolution of technology. I think that's what we're seeing with NFT gaming. It's people spend thousands of dollars on games and get nothing for them. You spend $5,000 on FIFA and they wipe you the next year, and you have to buy another FIFA Ultimate Team. It's different when it comes to NFT gaming. You own your assets, right? That's why, for me, we've built a non-custodial system, because we believe in true decentralization and true asset ownership. So I feel as though naturally we have such high conviction, because gaming is such a huge space where there's already so much money being poured into it. So people are comfortable spending online. But now it's like, well, what's the next step? You spend online, you buy a pair of shoes, you get the shoes delivered, right? It's not really the case in gaming. Like, you buy a skin and the skin's still technically owned by the game. If your account gets banned, you lose that skin. So I feel as though this is just a better application of the technology. It's a great application of blockchain and true digital ownership.
Yeah. I mean, as I said earlier, it is a complicated equation to bring these elements in and have it work. But if once somebody figures it out, it's over for non PTE, right?
Yeah, I
And
think for me, just
go on.
100% agree with you on that. It's just for me, I'm always a huge advocate of. I don't know. You're right. Who's going to figure it out when it comes to like the play to earn economy? That's really hard. It will happen eventually, but it might have to be a system where not everyone wins, right? So you have like people that want to pay to play, and maybe they get ownership of their NFTs, but they have to pay a fee to pay for premium service. And out of those funds, there's a pool, and that pool gets distributed to people who are doing more menial jobs in the game, like, I don't know, maybe farming or stuff like that on behalf of, like, maybe that's what guild eventually become. I don't know. There's like a division of sort of like labor in the game, and some people accrue value and others get paid. And I don't know, that's a big problem to solve, and we're not trying to solve that problem. But I think the initial value add is simply when somebody owns their assets in the game, it's simply better than someone not owning their assets, and that model can be applied. And obviously it's a threat to the current business model, which is interesting, which we can talk about. But yeah, ultimately it's just better, and it can be done in its current state without even worrying about a play to earn system and a token system.
Well, we can talk about that. I do want to ask, like, we've seen some measure of like resistance from the traditional gaming world to NFTs in gaming and to play to earn models. What do you think it will take to overcome that resistance and make those tools a seamless part of the gaming experience?
Yeah, it's the resistance. I feel like there's two different types of resistance here, right? Excuse me. I think there's resistance from gaming companies who are used to literally selling people nothing and getting a whole bunch of money in return. I think that business model has been around for a while now, and it works really well, right? So why change something that's broken? I think also that's part of the reason why crypto in general gets resistance, right? Because there's existing financial systems that just simply work. And that people are making a lot of money from. So it's like you're always going to get that resistance when there's a threat
that work for some people, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. But when there's enough demand and it's not working for enough people, obviously, right? So there's enough demand. So I think that's one level of resistance, and I think the other level of resistance is from gamers, which, if I'm being honest, I don't think there's as much of. But I think that there are still a pool of gamers who don't like the idea of like, creating the idea of like buying an NFT and everything should be free to play. And which, in my opinion, I think there's just a level of education that's needed there. And if you just draw comparative, it's like if I'm buying a disc, that's basically an unlimited license to play a game, right? If I'm buying a CD, it might cost me $80, $100. There's not that much of a difference between buying an NFT that for like $80 to $100 that you can just start playing with, right? It's still a license to play the game in one way or another. So I think that's the first thing. Now, I think to defining the levels of resistance, and then I think the next step is around like how that's overcome. And I think it's simply overcome through demand. And I think that eventually you're just going to have enough people earning with their assets, accruing value in their assets, because there's going to be lots of really good play to earn games that are going to come out. And naturally, you're just going to see, people coming from the ground up and saying, you know what, I want that too. You played, 3 or 4 years, and that asset's now worth $10,000. My assets are worth nothing. And I think naturally you're going to see that happen over time. So as people get more used to using wallet systems and understanding what decentralized ownership really is digitally, I think that you're just going to see that being solved and that resistance being brought down by the people that are playing, and it's just going to be a thing that happens over time.
As far as the people who are playing goes, what do you think it will take for blockchain-based gaming to reach that sort of mass adoption moment where enough people are playing it and are talking about it, that it sort of creates that knock-on effect? Sorry, do you think it's just a matter of somebody making a game so good that no gamer can resist, or is there some other X factor at play here?
I think so. It's going to be like 3 steps. I think the first step will be having an amazing game that everyone wants to play, like you just mentioned, right? That's step number 1. Because at the end of the day, it's gaming, right? Like forget the NFT and digital ownership. Like nobody wants to own assets in a game that no one wants to play. So it's like the first thing, a game needs to be really fun. And then the second step is going to be an amazing user and login experience. I think that is such a key element of it. So really spending time and optimizing, the UX, and that's the problem that we're trying to solve. That's what's part of the space that we're trying to optimize within. So I think providing a really good experience where any gamer can just start playing the game and understand how that digital ownership works, so how their assets will accrue value. So I think the combination of those two things, are really important. And yeah, I think then the last part's going to be that proper understanding that I am actually accruing asset value in these assets that I'm playing. So and understanding what I can do with those assets. So I think like when you get that initial phase of interoperability. So if you're playing a game where your assets are accruing value, and then all of a sudden you can play those assets across 5-6 other games, and that's that's the X factor that you mentioned, right? Like that's the sort of level. So I think it's going to be phased, and I think that there's a few things that need to be necessary. But really fun game, a really familiar and well presented user experience, and then I think really cool features and interoperability and stuff like that. That's the X factor that you can't do in Web 2 gaming, and I think that's what's going to take it to the next level.
I was just curious, like when I was looking at your marketplace on your website, can I, in theory, accrue assets in this PTE game and exchange those for something to use in another game within your platform?
Yeah, so the marketplace that you see on the platform is something that we built. It's actually a unique marketplace. It's called a PNFT marketplace. So essentially, what that is it's assets that are actually being played by gamers at that point in time, which is why we published a yield. So what's being earned on those assets by the gamer. So at the moment, we don't have a swap feature. It's just a buy and sell feature. But technically, you could swap assets in like one game. If we built that feature in with an asset in another game, and have gamers attached to those. So gamers are playing, and you own those assets, but you can also see a yield, and you can track your yield in the dashboard. So we call that our PNFT marketplace, which is something we're integrating into our SDK to allow for games to build that in themselves as well.
It's very interesting. What's next for Balthazar? Do you have any exciting rollouts or announcements in the works at the moment?
Yeah, so one of the things we're working on at the moment, is we're working on solving decentralized credential recovery systems, and we've got a solution that we're really excited about, which we'll be rolling out soon. But essentially, what you'll be able to do using our non-custodial wallet system is retrieve your credentials without anyone having custody of them. So it sort of removes the need for a custodial system, right? So it's very attractive for games. They don't have to worry about liability and asset ownership. They can provide this system, and people can then take responsibility for their own assets and retrieve them as needed. So and that's an application that can be used more broadly than just gaming, but at the moment it's gaming, and we're keen to roll it out on Tezos as well as one of the first applications.
Right on. Can you explain the name Balthazar and why your team chose it?
It's a funny story. We actually named it. It was a few things, but the initial, me and my business partner, we used to love French food. We used to go to French places quite regularly, and my core team. And he said to me one time, he goes, "I got to take it this." When we were just starting the DAO, and we didn't actually know what to call it, he's like, "I'm going to take it to this French restaurant in New York. It's called Balthazar." And we were like, "That's a cool name. Let's call the DAO Balthazar." So it was inspired by that, and then we sort of went a few levels deeper, and went into understanding Balthazar, and he was a like a demon and a wise man, and like there was a little bit of depth to the name. He spins a coin in like the law, so there are a few things that sort of lined up there. But yeah, I think that was the initial. Like, that sounds like a cool name. But we're all gamers and nerds, so we thought it's pretty cool.
I always enjoy hearing those stories.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest challenge that blockchain-based gaming has to contend with today?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, it's just going to be about getting real people to play the game. I think it's just going to take time for games to be fun, and you can't force a game to be fun. It's just so much unknown there. So I think the biggest challenge right now is that I genuinely feel that a lot of people are playing Web3 games just for the earnings, and that's not gaming. So that is going to have to be overcome. And then I think short-term resistance from the larger gaming studios around like protecting their business model is also a challenge. but it's something that, like I said, will eventually, that won't be an issue in the future when enough people are playing fun games.
Well, that was one of the two problems that you identified in the white paper. It's like if you're creating a game as a vehicle for NFTs and as a vehicle for tokenization, you're probably doing it backwards. Really, what you need to do is create an awesome game and have the NFTs and whatever be a secondary element, right?
Exactly right.
Okay, we're almost at the end here. Before we close off, I'd like to remind all our viewers that if you feel like reaching out, our social media contacts can be found at tezoscommons.org/TezTalks. We'd love to hear from you. John, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been extremely interesting. It's always awesome to speak to the folks building useful platforms like Balthazar and bringing us closer to the blockchain, NFT, and PTE enabled gaming landscape of the future. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention or plug before we sign off here?
Yeah, you can check us out on Balthazar DAO Twitter. Check us out there. You'll see lots of cool research reports on different games. You'll see us engaging it a lot with the Tezos community and other communities too. But yeah, and if you're a game and you're looking to optimize your user experience, or you want to access more Web2 users, hit us up at bltzr.gg. Or you can email me at john@bltzr.gg, and yeah, would love to work with you.
Perfect. To everyone out there in Tezos land, thanks for joining us on the TezTalks live stream. I'm Stu from the Tezos Commons, and our awesome guest has been John Stefanidis, CEO of Balthazar. Now let's go do some Tezos gaming.
Let's do it.